day, everybody. You're here with us at Cyberhuman Frontiers. If you've been with us for a while, you kind of know what we do. We explore cutting-edge integration of medical, biomedical, and computer technology, as well as how it spans and, I would say, bridges the gap between the military, institutions that do research in this stuff, and industry and high-tech companies. It's kind of all combined together. We would invite you to take a look in the archives of the shows, as well as go to humaninternet.org and take a look at our repository of information and documentation about some of this technology. And there's going to be a lot there for you to have fun with. If you're not so big on reading, engineering type stuff, well, that's kind of why we do this show. We kind of, translate things a little bit into a kind of a situation whereby you don't have to do so much hard thinking, let's say. And we kind of put it into more layman's terms for ourselves, because we have to figure this stuff out too. And then we try and bridge the gap between ourselves and everybody else so that we all have somewhat of an understanding of where we're going technologically. This video and none of our videos claim to give medical, legal, political, or financial advice. We offer them solely for your entertainment. The points of view and purpose here is not to incite fear, violence, bully, or harass in any way, but to share opinions and thoughts with other like-minded individuals who just might be curious about the same subject. The opinions on the stream belong solely to the persons expressing them, are not a representation of the channel Cyberhuman Frontiers, and we encourage you to have that spirit of exploration, as well as maybe a little bit of connecting the dots and looking what some of the possibilities might be between the relationships between companies, academia, defense, and all that business, because there may be more connections there than we can actually talk about on these shows, but they may be there and you may discover them. And you're welcome to put those opinions in the chat with us. We try to watch that during the shows. That being said, all of the content here is our own creation, except for those copyrighted works by others, which were not specifically authorized to be used by those copyright holders, but under the Copyright Act of 1976, we believe are protected by that provision. And that's all included in our show notes below, as well as some links to what we're going to be covering tonight. And another little feature that we have is the science fiction movie of the week. Just a suggestion to prompt your imagination and promote sci-fi come true thinking. And that one happens to be Brave New World. You can watch that at your own leisure. It's on BitChute. That would be up to you. And of course, your own discretion is advised with whatever you watch and whatever you pursue. We just put this information here for you to be able to digest and enjoy. TMC, how you doing tonight?
I was doing great until I started looking for material, and all of a sudden the name Obama started coming up, and now I feel a little nauseous.
Oh, wow.
Well, when we go over what Obama did, you'll find out why.
Wow. Well, all right. I think I have a feeling that I know what one of the things that he did was. Does it have anything to do with the BRAIN Initiative? Okay. All right. You know what I'm going to do just for a moment? Just give me a couple seconds. Let me just put a test share up on the screen here and see if it's sized right. Okay. There we go. Yep. Just wanted to see if that's working the way I want it to. We're looking good. This is something we may get to a little bit later in the show. I'll take that right down.
That was juicy, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to digress too far, we should do a show on graphene and the infrared light, and then tie that into the optogenetics piece, and then look at upconverting nanoparticles and other ways to interface using infrared. And then I just found a whole bunch of links in some of the old show notes that I have that discuss being able to selectively engage brain circuits with optogenetics, which is just the control of cells with the use of light, and specifically using infrared light to engage independent circuits based on the way the nanoparticles absorb the infrared energy and then what they emit. And that has to do with how the nanoparticles are created, both in size, shape, and materials. So we should do a whole show all on that. I'm glad you showed that.
As long as we were just mentioning the word graphene, a lot of people have been talking about graphene lately. And just in 1 minute or less, let's just say this: graphene is a form of carbon, and it is a kind of a geometric matrix of it. We've shown the shapes of it. We have links about it. Take a look in the other shows. I would say a couple things. Graphene promises to have a whole lot of uses. I mean, good uses. And it is also, in terms of potential toxicity, it is in its raw form toxic to the human body, but there's good news. The good news is the body is actually pretty good at getting graphene out of itself. It takes a little time, but the body has processes which are designed to be able to go after things like that. So if you were to somehow, who knows how, get some into you, your body works to try to remove it. The rub comes if that graphene has been somehow encapsulated into something that masks it as an invader, so that if it were somehow bonded to some sort of a biomolecule that makes it more appearing to be biocompatible with the organism, and it could be a human, then we're kind of in uncharted territory. We don't know how that's going to go. But I do believe that there are people who are making efforts to both make it less toxic as well as to try to get it to incorporate into organisms without being removed. And we'll keep you posted as we learn more about that.
All right. So we're not giving medical advice here.
Right.
But what I have read about pulling graphene out of the body, alcohol and tobacco, I'm not kidding, you can look this up, do your own research, I'm not giving medical advice. Alcohol and tobacco actually assist, according to the reading I've done, I'm not a doctor, so do your own reading, it assists in actually processing the graphene out of your body.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a comment I would love to make about two politicians right now, which explains why they're both safe. I can't make the comment. Okay. All right. Continue, sir, bravely.
Okay. Should we proceed with Darpa first, Obama, or the Brain Initiative?
You got me all intrigued by Obama at this point.
Okay.
I'm so curious.
All right. Let's go over there. We will look at remarks by the president on the Brain Initiative and American innovation. This was back in April 2nd of 2013 in the East Room. Oh, wait, which direction do, some religions pray? I'm being facetious. So the president, who wore a ring that had, something on it that may or may not indicate, and so did Brennan, by the way. But let's proceed. The president said, "Thank you so much." Clap, 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 clap. And what he talks about here is referencing Dr. Collins, who's head of the NIH right here, and Francis, right? He's a gifted singer and musician. Oh, you might appreciate that, Indy.
Yes.
So anyway, what this guy is talking about in here is basically recapping what he talked about in the State of the Union address, indicating very smart people need to work on things like growing the economy, create new jobs, reignite a rising, thriving middle class, investing in one of our core strengths, and that's American innovation. So this is this whole long, drawn-out NLP speech that is really, really nauseating, but check this out. Founders of Google got their early support from the National Science Foundation. Oh, really? Google got money from the National Science Foundation. Isn't that lovely? The Apollo project put a man on the moon, also gave us the CAT scan. So basically what they're saying here is a whole bunch of money needs to go into the Brain Initiative, and we'll get into what the specifics of that are. Oh, a chuckle, laughter. How lovely. The human brain contains almost 100 billion neurons, making trillions of connections. This is your brain. 100 billion neurons making trillions of connections. This is why your brain functioning at 12 watts is so valuable to somebody who potentially can access your brain and then do what they want with your brain and your body, rather than you having your own sovereignty. This is really the underpinning essence of tonight's discussion. So what we see here is the formation of the Brain Initiative, which will change, giving science the tools they need to get a dynamic picture of the brain in action and better understand how we think, how we learn, and how we remember. And that knowledge could be, will be transformative. The budget sent to Congress, significant investment, National Institute of Health, Darpa, and the National Science Foundation, which, by the way, gave Google a whole bunch of money when this was kind of getting off the ground. And Google, right? The head dude for Google, Mr. Schmidt, he has been all around the industries of note as it relates to the merger of technology and medicine. And we will spend some time in the future going over electroceuticals and electromedicine. These things will replace pharmaceuticals, and what it allows for is a much lower dose of pharmaceuticals that are tailor-made to be used in trace amounts that will then be amplified with the research that has been done and is still ongoing with the institutes that you see here, the NIH, DARPA, and the NSF. Bioethics. Obama has bioethics, right? Yeah. He's directing Bioethics Commission to make sure all of the research is being done responsibly. Now, this is the guy who, with Fauci, took all of the gain-of-function research and shipped it over to Wuhan. Bioethics, folks. And we're also partnering with the private sector. Oh, public-private partnerships. If you're not familiar with investment between the government and the private sector, what you should look up is the 1995 National Technology Transfer Act, which allowed for government to share highly sensitive research and development with corporations and others to manage the costs in order to streamline the budget for the government. What this really did was allow for a parallel construction of science, technology, and medicine to be assembled and then put into effect really without any oversight, in my view, in my opinion, for your entertainment purposes only. No oversight, limited oversight, to the extent that, you've got gain of function research being exported to our enemy. So anyway, what else is in here? Oh, some more chuckles. I hope you're all laughing because this stuff freaks the hell out of me. Think about what we could do once we crack this code. Imagine if no family had to feel helpless watching a loved one die of myocarditis or a blood clot. Imagine if no family had to feel helpless watching a loved one disappear behind the mask of Parkinson's or struggle in the grip of epilepsy. Imagine if we could reverse traumatic brain injury or induce reverse traumatic brain injury or PTSD for our veterans. Wonder why why are veterans suiciding themselves upwards of like 20 a day? Well, if you tune in here on a regular basis, you might begin to creatively, for your entertainment purposes only, paint yourself a picture about how these technologies are used in order to make sure the individuals who have been trained by the government, and in particular the military, make sure they're taken care of when they're veterans, well taken care of. They need to be domesticated and put into a docile state, their resources assanguated, and ultimately be used, in my view, for your entertainment purposes only, as guinea pigs to further this brain initiative research.
How can you resist? If you're a researcher, how can you resist? If you think that there's, a need to learn more and maybe only like slight temporary harm might be done, and if it's for quote unquote, in someone's view, the good of the many or the good of furthering the agenda of knowledge, how could they not justify, doing a little bit of experimentation using, using actual subjects?
Listen to this next sentence. Okay. PTSD and TBI for veterans, right? Taking care of them, quote unquote. I'm making air quotes with my claw hands. Imagine if someone with a prosthetic limb can now play the piano or throw a baseball as well as anybody else, because the wiring from the brain to that prosthetic is direct and triggered by what's already happening in the patient's mind. So what does this mean? This is a closed loop feedback system whereby a prosthetic, because this is what has been declassified, right? Directly wiring a robotic appendage straight into your brain so that when your brain wants the limb to do something, the limb does it, and the brain then receives stimuli back from the robotic appendage and makes the necessary modifications and or provides the associated stimulation. So it's a synthetic essence of touch, or it's a synthetic essence of a force applied if you're trying to grip something or lift something. This is the translation of biologic code into the digital space that is the underpinnings of the Brain Initiative, so that something like the internet becomes a nervous system for the entire human species, in my opinion, for your entertainment purposes only. The wiring from the brain to the prosthetic is direct and triggered by what's already happening in the patient's mind. What if computers could respond to our thoughts or our language barriers? All of that could come tumbling down. What if millions of Americans were suddenly finding new jobs in these fields? Well, not now. Nobody's really working now. Jobs we haven't even dreamt up yet because we chose to invest in this project. The Brain Initiative is absolutely important. This is Obama saying this.
Of course it is.
So I think that, I don't want the next job creating discoveries to happen in China. Well, then why are you giving them all of our tech? India or Germany? And Germany is a beast all unto itself. I want them to happen right here in the United States of America. All the experiment on the American citizens for entertainment purposes only. And that's part of what the Brain Initiative is all about. We are pursuing other grand challenges like making solar energy. Hashtag, Gang Chen, the guy from MIT's MITRE Labs who was arrested by the FBI for ties with China, and he was working on solar nanotechnology. That was not too long ago. And on and on and on and on and on and on. Let's move to the next
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the National Institute of Health website, upper right corner here, National Institute of Health. And this is their Brain Initiative section. It's quite a large database or repository where you can find things like funding for studying magnetic fields or electric fields or light or sound and how they impact the brain and the nervous system, amongst other things. That is what you can find on this website. And this is where I found what we just read. So what I'm going to do is go to the next tab and show you something from the White House archive from President Obama. The Brain Initiative. Brain research through advancing innovative neurotechnologies. April 2013, President announced the launch of the Brain Initiative. Bold new initiative focusing on revolutionizing our understanding of the brain. And
this couldn't possibly have been his idea.
No, man, the politicians at that level are installed.
Directed.
So no. Yeah, they're installed. Brain Initiative has the potential to do for neuroscience what the Human Genome Project did for genomics. Oh, well, this is a nice little marrying of, by supporting development and the application of innovative technologies that can create a dynamic understanding of brain function, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, depression, TBI. Everybody will be evaluated in the very near future with some type of mental disorder, in my opinion. And if you don't believe me, go look up the World Health Organization, who forecasts by like approximately 2030, 3 out of 4 people in the world globally will have a mental disorder of some type. And if it's not 3 out of 4, it's 1 out of 2. I can't quite remember. I looked up this piece of information quite a long time ago. Look it up. World Health Organization, mental health disease projection or something like that, and put in 2030, 2045, or 2025, and you'll get something that is near what I'm saying. This is a long-term strategy to ultimately create an environment whereby we are guilty until proven innocent. And if you are not a good little citizen, socially speaking, you will be evaluated as having some type of a problem, which will then need to be dealt with for the social, common, collective good. This is the risk that we run. And what I mean by that is this. Where's the accountability? Where is the transparency? And where is the discussions in an open platform at the government level? Could be federal, could be state, could be local, doesn't matter, could be at your church for that matter. These discussions aren't happening. What is happening are discussions, in my view, about theater and about shaping a narrative that keeps most people in a very narrow box as it relates to what they understand, perceive, and accept or don't accept. And this is where the MSM and everything else comes into play, where every component sort of interleaves. And that has to do, folks, with this new form of fascism or feudalism that we are currently undergoing in America and around the world. And what that really consists of is multiple governments that change their priority of control or power based on the needs of the global architecture, a single unified global architecture, what commonly would be cliched as the New World Order. But it's beyond that. It really is just a unitary global architecture that manifests itself in specific ways that are unique based on where, in fact, you live. And that has to do with how you're raised and what culture you have and the things that you find important within that culture. Those need to be studied, and then they need to be evaluated to effectively erode away whatever civil protections a society has, so that feudalism, fascism, totalitarianism, otherwise known as communism or socialism, can begin to take a foothold. Once that happens, dependency, domestication starts to occur. And off we go down the painful road of dumbing down the entire society, and in this case globally, so that the common global architecture can continue to maintain its homogeneity of power. So back to the BRAIN initiative. The initiative will accelerate the development and application of new technologies that will enable researchers to produce dynamic pictures of the brain that show how individual brain cells and complex neural circuits interact at the speed of thought. This, folks, is the new internet. Cell phones will be rendered obsolete. Cell phones will basically turn into what your home router does for your computer or your phone. What this looks like in the future is something like a cell phone tethered to you, nearby you, that provides a stable, high-speed interface with the internet as we understand it. The other side of that phone is you, right? It's in your pocket or on your hip or in your bra. The other side of the phone, away from the internet, is you. And so what will be the new internet is a body area network, or what the World Economic Forum calls the Internet of Bodies. And I can find that video. We should play it, Indy.
The Internet of Bodies.
Yeah. When I hand share back to you, I'll find it. It's in a Twitter feed. Anyway, the Internet
of for it while you're doing this.
Yeah, the Internet of Bodies is basically this notion that as granular as they can get, down to a cell, or even within the subcomponents of a cell, everything has an address. Everything is on the network in your body. Now, we just got done looking at 100 billion neurons, 100 billion neurons in your brain, doing trillions of processes. That's just your brain, 100 billion. Think about the number of addresses and or sub-networks, when we'll get into subnets with Darpa here shortly. Think about the number of sub-networks that exist in your body if your brain exclusively has 100 billion neurons. What about the rest of the cells in your body? Think for a moment that your cells potentially can be labeled and addressed in such a way that your cell phone is able to understand the difference between your left arm and your right arm, your left hand and your right hand, and all of the independent fingers on said hands. Same thing with your toes, same thing with your nose. This is the internet of the future. Quite frankly, it's happening already, but this is just for your entertainment purposes only. So what you can see here on this Brain Initiative page is that there are all kinds of places to go look and explore on your own. See, there's a YouTube channel down here for the Brain Initiative. So, Indy, my thoughts are for you to take this one and put it in our notes. Yep. And I will send this to you.
I found a little video, by the way.
Good. I will drop share. You can show the video, and I'm going to look for the World Economic Forum video.
Okay, this will just be brief. It's only 5 minutes long, but that will give you a little bit of time. I think you might find this fascinating, that even something like this exists, such a thing as the Internet of Bodies. What is the Internet of Bodies? This is not brand new. This is a year or so old. And I don't know if you've happened to run across this.
This might be the one.
This is the first that I even ever, there's so much to stay on top of, guys. Man, it's a job. Let's just digest this a little bit. Very short video, okay?
In the 20th century, wireless technology integrated with the human body was nothing more than science fiction. But today, Wi-Fi connected devices like heart rate monitors and sleep trackers have become common parts of American life. How has bionic technology evolved so quickly from science fiction to reality? And what could this Internet of Bodies mean for our lives moving forward? RAND researchers are studying this phenomenon and what consumers and policymakers need to know as we veer into uncharted territory.
The Internet of Bodies, or I.O.T.
All right, so really think about it. I mean, you can be scared, you can be trepidatious, you can be excited. There's nothing inherently bad about connecting more and more to whatever you want to connect to. And we've covered this ground before. It's all about who's in control of it. If you have full control of whatever you're doing, it's like any other peripheral or any other appendage or appliance. If you are aware and fully cognizant of what it is doing, and if it's under your control, it's fine. It really is all about who's building it and who controls it. So
I found it.
You found good. That's
I'm going to send it to you real quick.
Okay.
And you can play it.
That's great. Is it in? Okay, I'll find it. I think
it's in the it's in your chat. And
I got it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, I appreciate the fact that Mary Lee is raising a little bit of awareness about what this could mean, and you've got to really extrapolate to some of the other events and situations that we see occurring around us in the world, and how much control we have over those situations and events, and how much we feel like we just have to sit and watch what somebody's going to do next. And then we have to just kind of accept it. Well, that's where the issue comes in right there, especially if it's ubiquitous or if it's invisible, or if somehow it is kind of a bait and switch. It's sold to us under the guise of being, a convenience or a necessity or something else. But if it carries with it something else that's not so obvious.
So I want to add something here real quick.
Yeah.
You see in the left corner there, the RAND Corporation.
Yes.
Right. I believe the former Secretary of Defense, Dr. Mark Esper, used to be a high-level executive at the RAND Corporation, I believe.
Look it up.
Yeah. So while we're playing this video, if you care to, in the background, just search Dr. Mark Esper,
yep,
Defense Secretary, and RAND, and you'll find all kinds of interesting things about that gentleman who was replaced by whatever the hell you want to call what we have now. So
I'll try to do that on another machine. I can't do that on this one while I'm playing.
I'll search.
Video,
I'll search. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll look it up. Mark Esper. Yep. Mary Lee. Carry on. Now, what this is what is the Internet of Bodies? Okay, here she goes.
I.O.T is actually
to uncharted what consumers and RAND researchers are studying this phenomenon and what consumers and policymakers need to know as we veer into uncharted territory.
the Internet of Bodies, or I.O.T, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the
can alter the body's function. You saw that little map that was right there. So, of course, this is depicting the various connections that we're monitoring or interfacing with, and it really does work this way nowadays.
Health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices as well as all the data that the devices are gathering about you. And in healthcare, Internet of Bodies has been around for quite a while. With the advent of the internet, it makes a lot of sense to connect your pacemaker to the internet so that your doctor can be automatically notified if something weird happens, if there's an anomaly. It's natural in a lot of ways to want to understand more about your body, how it functions,
By the way, I know someone personally whose pacemaker is connected by way of the internet through a coupling through his smartphone, and he can monitor it, but it's automatically passed on by way of a data link to the doctor's office computers. And it is set up so that it sounds some sort of an alert at their response screen. Yeah, you found it, TM?
Yeah, I gotta make a correction. It wasn't RAND, it was Raytheon. So
okay.
Yeah. Pardon the autism there, and I'm being facetious, but he gave a speech at the RAND Corporation that I happened to watch, which is where I think the association was made in my brain. And what he was discussing while serving in the Trump administration was this idea of multilateral trade agreements, which is antithetical or completely opposite to what it is President Trump was attempting to do, which was establish bilateral trade in order to improve America's position with respect to negotiations. And this guy was it Dr. Esper. He wasn't of the same opinion. Anyway, I will leave this up and show you his face here when we're done with the video. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Yeah, interesting.
well, it's doing
I.O.T devices could
about if there's an anomaly. It's natural in a lot of ways to want to understand more about your body, how it functions, how well it's doing.
I.O.T devices could revolutionize healthcare. Unprecedented amounts of personal health data could inform treatment plans that are completely tailored to a patient's needs.
Could tailor it to a patient's needs. Unprecedented amounts of health data can be used for all kinds of things, right?
Their informed healthcare. Unprecedented amounts of personal health data could inform treatment plans that are completely tailored to a patient's needs.
There are pills now that have an electronic sensor that let a healthcare provider know whether you have taken the medication. Other things like precision medicine. So precision medicine is the idea of creating pharmaceuticals or treatment like specifically for your body, for your personalized treatment. And I think I.O.T could really help with that because nowadays a lot of healthcare is based more on, average reactions, whereas with data from IoT devices, you might be able to really more precisely treat a certain disease.
But the Internet of Bodies won't be a cure-all. In fact, the largely unregulated market poses risks to the uniquely sensitive data these devices collect.
Any comments there, TMC? I mean, how do insurance companies come up with the premium rates for various risk levels of whoever their subscribers to their insurance policies are?
I know a guy who would answer that better than me, and perhaps later this evening you might ask that question. To provide you with my answer, it's simply this. When you go look at interviews that someone like Tim Cook of Apple, right, what he says with respect to privacy, he thinks that Apple is in the forefront of protecting privacy as a result of what he says, all of your biometrics, all of your personal information is stored locally on your device, and that Apple doesn't collect any of that. Now, if you believe that, I think you're not that bright. In order to help in order to help support what I just said is simply this. There is a very, very, very good reason why Google and Apple have merged in order to combat the pandemic. And what they've done is create an architecture between the two giant companies in order to allow for cross compatibility of devices and the core or backbone architecture of these companies. And what I mean by that is this. When you look at a company like Apple and you look at a company like Google, when you consider how those companies set up their own networks for their businesses,
right,
you're talking about setting up networks around the globe and in space. So the tracking, tracing applications that have now enabled, due to the emergency, now have enabled the two primary major companies responsible for managing internet traffic. When you think about the number of devices Apple sells with respect to percentages, and then you look at a company like Google and you see how much influence and pull and management they do of the internet, it's very easy to see how those two alone would be enough to deploy a global tracking and tracing program. Now, if Apple thinks for a moment that I personally believe that they are protecting my privacy, oh, and by the way, I use Apple stuff, I would tell Tim Cook, no, I don't believe you, simply because something like a contact tracing app is designed specifically to track your behavior and your location and who you contact, when, where, why, and how for quote unquote public safety.
Right.
So that guy needs to go, in my opinion. But there's my response, sir.
Yep.
First of all,
Risks are all.
treat a certain disease.
But the Internet of Bodies won't be a cure-all. In fact, the largely unregulated market poses risks to the uniquely sensitive data these devices collect.
First of all, there's the cyber risk of an actor potentially hacking into the system, whatever it might be. There's the privacy risk of all this data that's being collected, and the regulations about that data are really.
So seriously, how many, if we could just enumerate, and of course, the other people participating in our stream and chat here, weigh in on this. How many instances of hacking have we seen? We've seen credit cards hacked. We've seen bank accounts hacked. We've seen things that we would think are public utilities hacked, such as the controls for electrical power grid stuff, propane lines. So hacking happens. Well, let's just agree that it happens.
Solar something? There was a major infrastructure government hack not too long ago. And it was shortly after Klaus Schwab was talking about the cyber pandemic and it being so much worse that makes the COVID crisis look like a holiday or whatever the hell he said. Yeah.
So my thing is, regardless of the good that this stuff could possibly do, until we can ensure that it is hack proof, which is impossible, We should not allow this much of an inroad into literally the physiology of any and every human being on the planet. And we're not going to be able to make it hack proof. So it just seems, I just try to simplify it. It just seems like we shouldn't be going there. That's just my opinion. You can have yours, and anybody else wants to tell us about some other instances of hacking that they've seen, which were rather alarming or inconvenient to some of us. There have been many, and there will be more.
Murky that's being into the system of an actor potentially hacking into the system, whatever it might be.
Right.
There's the privacy risk of all this data that's being collected, and the regulations about that data are really murky at the moment. And so there's not a lot of clarity into who owns the data, what happens to it, who it gets sold to, how it's being used.
Okay. How do we end up surrendering our ownership of data that's about us? By way of clicking the box that allows you access and use of whatever the device might be. It's going to be in there, buried in a fine print somewhere. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something.
I was just golf clapping for you, buddy, because that was great. And for those of you that don't understand the golf clap analogy, it was from, I believe, the movie Men at Work, which is what we're doing, brother. So proceed.
Okay.
Used are really murky at the moment.
Murky.
And so there's not a lot of clarity into who owns the data, what happens to it, who it gets sold to, how it's being used. And there's even potentially national security and global security risks.
A few examples of these.
So exactly how many, we didn't create this video. We're just, replaying it for you. Exactly how many red flags can be raised all at once? She just named off 4 or 5 good ones, and they're pretty big ones, and they're flapping in the breeze.
These risks have all
sold to, how it's being used. And there's even potentially national security and global security risks.
Great.
A few examples of these risks have already played out in real life. For instance, in 2018, highly sensitive information about U.S. military activity and base locations was inadvertently revealed by soldiers' fitness trackers.
Fitness tracker. Okay.
So this is a pivotal moment. What can we do to make sure?
If there's a pivotal moment going on, how many people are informed about this stuff? And how many people have any sort of control or latitude regarding the advancement thereof? I mean, out of all of us here. Okay. Enough said.
This is a pivotal moment. What can we do to make sure we reap the potential benefits of the Internet of Bodies without risking our privacy, security, and personal autonomy?
I know.
Consumers.
Okay, shoot.
I have the answer. The answer is to
thank goodness. You've got the answer.
The answer is
God
to
bless you, brother.
It's to convince the general public that privacy and security are no longer a concern because some company like Apple and Google have taken care of it for you.
They're
because
you
need a mommy and a daddy when you're grown up to take care of you and wipe your little sniffles and make sure that you're a good little slave.
They're going to manage that for you, of course. And as long as you go along with the use, you purchase their device and use their software, they take care of all those things for you so that you can have your phone calls and your text and your enjoyment and your 4K streaming movies, et cetera, and whatever else that you might want to do with that device, which is only, in my view, that's actually a smaller fraction of what those devices can do than everything else that they do or might do in the near future.
Should
secure benefits of the Internet of Bodies without risking our privacy, security, and personal autonomy.
Consumers should be wary of IOB devices because as it's becoming more and more popular,
Okay, so what do you do? If you should be wary of IOB devices, I have a friend, older man, okay, 80-something years old, has a heart conduction problem, okay, and he literally has one of these devices and he's using it. It probably helps him. It probably does. It's a quick early response if he's going into AFib or who knows ever what else.
This intimate data devices because as it's becoming more and more popular, all of this intimate data is being collected, arguably more intimate data than we've ever really recorded before. There's no clarity on what is being done with that data. You know, with an old mechanical pacemaker, there's no data that was being collected and stored, and you could look at a history of someone.
And they did work, but they could malfunction. So we trade off having less malfunctions and quicker, earlier response for what is opening the gateway to a complete surrender of privacy of all of your body's physiological conditions at any point in time, as well as where you are and what you're doing and all that other stuff. And corroborating it all together to put together a behavioral profile of you. Okay.
Heart being collected and stored, and you could look at a history of someone's heart rhythms. Because policy tends to lag behind innovative technologies like this, it's probably up to the consumers and to the healthcare patients to really be aware of the devices that they're using and what is happening to their data, and to know what the regulations are in their particular.
Well, again, my 80-something-year-old friend, okay, he's going to make that choice that he will willingly surrender privacy of any of that medical data because he wants that protection of life and limb based on not having an unscheduled myocardial infarction. But
that sounds like a really good strategy.
To do this wholesale and just roll out devices, mass production, and everybody gets one, young or old, whether you're healthy or not, regardless of whatever it is. That seems to be where the overreach is there, is to do this at a mass level. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the strategy is a good one.
For him, it's good. TMC, right. For him, it's actually good.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
I like the guy. I don't want him to kick the bucket because we didn't know.
If you place the majority of people in a position to feel the way your friend does, then the end result is no one has any privacy, because the new standard with the shifting Overton window would then require the Internet of Bodies to make sure the public was healthy after the public has been made very, very sick.
Or after well, not necessarily that. What if it was just the public has been made very, very fearful and worried? Say, oh, gee, I don't want to, I want that early response too. I want that early warning as well. Even if they are an extremely low health risk, even if there's really no major threat beyond getting hit by a bus.
That is a form.
Fear.
No, that is a form of disease. If we go back to looking at what the World Health Organization as an example, only one, what they consider as having an illness, and something like having an overwhelming sense of fear would be classified, for example, as PTSD or anxiety or depression, which then provides the authorization to go ahead and medicate.
Exactly.
For everybody's safety.
Even if it's electronically medicating in the coming near future.
That's where we're going, because Google, for example, bought Fitbit. And
we need to calm you down.
Yeah, well, I'll stop drinking coffee. Let's go.
I don't mean you.
I know, I'm playing.
No, I don't mean you. I mean the said patient example that you had. Being monitored, being observed, they're just about to get triggered by some crazy paranoid thing. Oh, well, we need to just dial you down a little bit, okay? We don't want you to get all upset, right? You're shaky, your heart rate's up, your respiration's up, your body temperature's up, you're sweating. So we're just going to dial you down.
No. Well, that's only one side of it. If you can dial it down, you can dial it up. So at that point, you then have the flexibility to begin to overdrive either a sedentary, tranquil, calm, lucid state, or an elevated, excited, aggressive, angered, violent state. All of it available on demand through the use of what they call software-defined networks that enable what they call anything as a service. And you can look up X as in X-ray. It's XAAS, and that means anything as a service. Anything as a service is everything is for rent. You own nothing, which means you can take a couple examples and see where this goes. Listen, please. You used to be able to go buy Outlook, Excel, and Note and everything else. And now it's all Office 360. Right. That's one example of how companies like Microsoft and Google and Twitter and Facebook position society in such a way that we are sold convenience and affordability through the use of cloud access. And what that does is prevent an individual from having the necessary hardware and software off of the network to store their data. What this furthers is the ability for big data and big tech and big telecom
to store it all,
continue to fuse and merge together in order to project what it is that people, individuals, and groups of any size, what it is they will be doing in the future. And I have an article that I will find that talks about the Pentagon looking at future prediction technologies using big data. So proceed, sir.
So, I mean, if everybody's okay about having a psychophysiological electromagnetically modulating interface device either on their person or built into them, and everything that comes with it, well, then, hey, good for you if that's what you want. I don't personally want that. I don't. And I think that there are, as I said, that elder man that I know, I think he actually wants it. He'd rather have it. And maybe that's his choice. So choice is necessary, and full disclosure about what the capabilities and capacities of this stuff is. And then some sort of your own personal firewall that you can manage so that you can be the gatekeeper of what goes in and out of that device and out to wherever it is. That's all of what's necessary. This lady has spelled right out how murky that territory is, and she's almost finished here. I think she did a real nice job on this, by the way.
State, because it does vary so much to using and what is happening to their data, and to know what the regulations are in their particular state, because it does vary so much state by state. Even if you think you're not interesting or that nothing will happen with your data, there are a lot of unknowns that I think we need to be careful about.
There you go, right there. Video production from the RAND Corporation. We'll certainly put that link in our notes for you, and you can watch it again.
Can I take share?
Pass it to your, absolutely. Here,
yes.
Knock it right down. There you go, sir.
All right, so let's go over here, and we're going to watch this, and then I'll show you the Pentagon AI future prediction stuff.
Awesome.
So this is from COVID 1984 on Twitter. And this is the World Economic Forum, Fourth Industrial Revolution, Internet of Bodies.
They call it part of the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
One of the features of this Fourth Industrial Revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change. Up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotions.
The focus, as all of you know, today is on what's now called the Internet of Bodies, involving medical implants and other kinds of devices that go inside your body, and all together with the Internet as a whole comprise the Internet of Bodies.
The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the Internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices, as well as all the data that the devices are gathering about you. And in healthcare, it's Internet of Bodies has been around for quite a while.
So the Internet of Bodies, imagine the power of AI. What is artificial intelligence? It's a way to automate computation and cognition. So we can now automate learning perceiving, doing computation. It's a pervasive general purpose technology that will be used in all of our industries, that will come into our professional networks, our private networks, our schools, our industries and our offices. What I wanted to epitomize with the Internet of Bodies is this notion that we will be under assessment, we will be under measure of computation in every aspect of our lives in the future, from what you eat, who you date, what you buy on the internet, how much energy you use, but also what are your vital signs? How well are you doing in terms of health? What kind of specific genetic quirks do you have? What's your genome telling about your health, about your mental health, about how well you are doing, how well you are aging, what kind of disease you are susceptible to?
It has a bit of an Orwellian twinge to it.
Well,
all right, so here is the Pentagon. And AI will analyze big data to predict future events.
TMC, I'm throwing the link for that one up for everybody right now. I found it.
Very good. The use of artificial intelligence could identify important events days in the future. Interesting. By analyzing large amounts of information, AI might be able to anticipate other nations' military moves. Big data is studied for many reasons. Global information dominance experiments, right? The U.S. military is running a battery of tests, and they're calling it global information dominance experiments with a network of artificial intelligences, meaning more than one, a plurality of artificial intelligences, a variety of software that has machine learning and neural networks and all that, that will provide days of advanced warning to operatives about changing activities in other nations. For example, an increased number of cars in a parking lot in an overseas military base may mean an upcoming offensive by a country. That's a pretty milquetoast example in my view, but anyway, artificial intelligence can read this increased traffic and notify U.S. military leaders, drastically increasing their advanced knowledge as compared to the time it would take for a human data analyst to produce it. How did that work out in Afghanistan?
Not
Biden.
Not that well, really.
Oh, Biden. This is possible by examining big data. And they get into some guy who's going to advocate for this, Defining big data. Data collection is reaching incredible levels in the digital age. Every time a Netflix customer rates something they've seen by clicking Netflix their thumbs up or their thumbs down, it refines how Netflix suggests titles for that customer. This is tailored marketing. It does this for
promotional marketing. Tailored promotion marketing.
It's beyond promotional. It's tailored marketing, and I'll explain in a minute.
Okay.
It does this for millions of people. Amazon, TikTok, Facebook, and other companies have similar algorithms they use. So for advertising, to your point, sir, you're exactly right. It is far beyond that. Once you are studied and once the tailoring is specific to you, what happens is assessments are made as it relates to how much you're willing to pay for something, whether or not you wait for it to go on sale, if you have a coupon, if it looks like it's on sale or it's not. And so what something like, or a company like Amazon would do after they study your purchasing habits and scrape all of your personal information off the web, because they are participatory with the CIA and the DHS and others in order to manage and monitor terrorism and other national security issues, what they will end up doing is charging someone $10 for a pack of diapers, and someone else is going to be charged $6 for a pack of diapers, because they know the person who's paying $6 for a pack of diapers won't pay $10. And so what that person does, this is how the big data works, that person will go to Amazon, see the $10, for example, diaper pack, and then go somewhere else like eBay or some other website like Target or Walmart or whatever, and they'll see diapers for $8.99. Or $7.99. And so they will buy that. And so what Amazon will do, for example, is look at someone's data and understand that this individual is strictly
buying habits.
Right. Strictly running on price. This other individual appreciates the convenience and likes the streamlined products and services that Amazon, for example, offers. So Amazon will know they can extract more wealth out of an individual versus another individual based on their behavior. This is where this is going. And we're just talking about buying diapers. Imagine when AI is picking your mate. Imagine when AI studies your child to the extent that they are then guided through their adolescence to then be prepared for whatever job they have been chosen to do. This is the idea of having the facade, the fakery of free will, when in reality, it's being taken away. You are being potentially lied to in such a way, and just for your entertainment purposes only, such that you believe that you are exercising your own free will, when in fact, AI knows your behaviors, your habits, so well that it is able to provide the right stimuli at the right time to shift and guide your decision-making processes, ultimately resulting in how you take physical action in the world.
Mm-hmm.
This is the power of cyber. This is the modern battle space. And it's already been deployed through consumerism. Go ahead.
And not even for privacy or anything. I mean, just in general, just, dial it all way back down. Like, how much do you want to be studied? How much do you want to be studied? Do you want to? It's not even about being paranoid or whether it's my private data or anything. It's just like, how much do you want to be under somebody else's microscope? Just simply, without even escalating it to any higher level than that.
That depends who it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's a child, if it's your child or your spouse, that level of scrutiny should be an expectation, because the goal there is to grow the nuclear unit.
I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I would say heavy consideration needs to be made with respect to what is allowable for the anything around the Fourth Amendment, which is to be secure in your papers and your effects, including your biometrics, your purchasing habits, and everything. And this is why cash is going away. This is why everything is going to the cloud. This is why everything is going into the digital space, and why children, for example, are being force migrated to digital devices, simply because they will be able to be studied, stimulated, and the information available one class versus the next could change. And it would be very easy to make an update on a cloud system rather than printing 100,000 new textbooks. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. I'm gonna.
If you get bored, I have more videos, but yeah, I'm just really just captivated by where you're going with this.
I'm gonna drop share and see where you go.
Okay. Here's another little one. Oh, wait a minute. I lost the link. Okay. So here we go. I didn't have it loaded, but now it is. Okay. Coming right up. Patience. I'm clicking as fast as I can, guys. I'm doing the best I can here. Okay. All right. Love that music, huh? Brrr. Yeah, okay, we're entering the era of the Internet of Bodies, collecting our physical data via a range of devices that can be implanted, swallowed, or worn.
I would mute that.
It's muted.
Yeah, we just got to make sure there any reason to nitpick. I think.
Thank you. Done, so. Thank you. Yep.
So, go ahead.
The result is a huge amount of health-related data that could improve human well-being around the world and prove crucial in fighting the. Won't say it. This is not our video.
Right. So here is
rebroadcast.
This is the sales pitch to justify under an emergency.
Let me just clarify. This channel is streaming this video for entertainment purposes only. And we are taking something that is already on YouTube and we are replaying it with their assumed permission, and we will credit the creator.
We are able
notes.
We are able under fair use to use this video as we see fit, provided we comply with fair use, which is why we mute it and why we are having adequate discussion, brother. Go ahead.
Yes. In the special smart thermometers. Okay, smart thermometers. All right, I like that. I'm kind of missing that music. It was pretty cool.
Smart thermometers. Let's look at what infrared and FLIR, forward-looking infrared, right? What those technologies can do, and what you can also research if you go to humaninternet.org is the ability to measure temperature with radar. If you look at Google Soli's patents, what they talk about, you can pause that. What they talk about in the Google Soli patents is being able to measure temperature on your arm in 3 different locations with something like a Google Pixel phone.
Exactly.
And that is not with infrared. That is with the radar, ultra wideband technologies that exist to do things like enable you to be able to, flip through recipes while your hands are covered in egg and breadcrumb. You don't have to touch your phone anymore. You could just swipe your hand or look or whatever. And the radar, not the camera, not the infrared, the radar is able to understand with specificity 3 different points on your arm and extract your temperature. Humaninternet.org.
And I'm going to read the little description below this video. So this is from Tech Inc. on YouTube. The Internet of Bodies is here, and the little description is this. Have you heard the term, the Internet of Bodies? This may conjure up a few thoughts that have nothing to do with the true nature of the term, but it's about using the human body as the latest data platform. At first, this concept seems quite creepy, but when you realize the possibilities it creates, it becomes quite exciting. I'm excited. Aren't you excited? I think we're all excited. Here we explore what the Internet of Bodies is, some examples in use today, and a few of the challenges it presents. Ooh, okay, back to the video. It's very short. Recording temperature with an electronic device, minimizing the risk of infection. Smart thermometers designed by Viva Link, a Silicon Valley-based startup, and revolutionizing healthcare. Internet of Bodies allows collecting our physical data via devices that can be implanted, swallowed, or simply worn, generating a huge amount of health-related information.
If you would like to read more about the wearables, you can go again to humaninternet.org and go to bioenergy interfaces, and you will see patents that discuss sensor technologies on things like headphones and watches that
give us a quick tour. Would you like to just give us a quick tour into that?
Why not? Yeah, sure.
Sounds like a good idea. Perfect timing right now.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to the tab we were in. And I think I have a website page open. Okay. So if you go to humaninternet.org, at some point I'll rework this site. I need to add some things, but this is secondary to other things. If you go here, what you will see are all kinds of interesting topics. Some are populated, some are not. If you go to bioenergy interfaces, you will see BrainQ, which was what we discussed a week ago. You'll see electromedicine, and then you have wearable and mobile devices. The wearable and mobile devices, those of you that have been around for a long time, we've discussed this ad nauseum, but this is very important because this is what's declassified. What I mean by declassified is this stuff is already deployed in the consumer space, which means that the classified stuff does whatever this does a whole lot better. And in my view, for your entertainment purposes only, the classified stuff now is able to be inserted into your body. You don't have to wear headphones and a watch anymore. You can just walk around and you are known. You are known. So if you go here, you can go to click on what says watch, and you will see brainwave monitoring with a watch that has a form factor just like an Apple Watch. This guy used to work for NASA and now is working in the Silicon Valley in the automobile industry and in the child health industry and the neurofocus industry. So if you go to FreeRLogic's website, what you will see is a whole lot of interesting stuff, if it'll load.
Well, you've only got about 500 tabs open, so your computer might run a little slow.
Yeah, so this is embedded neurotechnology in your car. This thing's measuring your brain. You can see a coil apparatus here. Yep. Coils exist in your phones. They're used for wireless charging. They're also used for near field communication and proximity sensing. What they've done is taken the same general hardware and put it in something like a seat that when you look at these patents, they can remotely monitor your brain waves up to and including thoughts, which is something we'll address here in a minute, from greater than 10 centimeters or inches, 10 inches away from your head, which means no contact is necessary to be able to read your brain. This is a body wave that in their earlier patents with FreeRLogic, they're able to extract your heartbeat from this little device, and what they're able to do is filter out the overpowering heartbeat signals, which just leaves the brain waves. And the patents discuss in detail what exactly is possible in a general sense. And in this case, they're advertising something like being able to understand whether somebody with ADD or ADHD is able to maintain some type of focus. And this provides visual feedback in the non-classified environment, visual feedback to assist children with staying on task. And this is similar to what we saw with the Chinese students where they wore those headbands and the teacher was able to see how they were feeling or if they were paying attention, etc. It's simply another flavor of the same kind of thing. Now, if we go back, I will show you what this patent really talks about. This is the most recent patent from FreeRLogic, and when I say they can extract your thoughts, I am literally not kidding. This is a dual brainwave monitoring device for concurrent brain monitoring and communication. And what this talks about is something like an Apple Watch or a smartwatch being able to connect your brain to somebody else's brain over the internet or Wi-Fi. And this particular patent is not an Apple Watch. It is a body wave watch by FreeRLogic. But what I want to illustrate for you is this. These right here, 186 and 185, right? These are electrodes, electrodes. They are electrodes that make physical contact with your body. From those contacts, they are able to stimulate and they are able to read your nervous system, which is what allows connectivity to your brain. In addition to the electrodes, it has an antenna. It doesn't have to be a coil. It doesn't have to necessarily look like this. Any antenna can do this. And the reason why is because they use transcranial magnetic stimulation, which simply is pulsing on, off of electromagnetic waves in such a way that it is able to remotely measure your brain or do something like stimulate the visual portions of your brain. And if you don't believe me, I will show you right here. What it says here is that Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or the internet, right, can separate person one from person two who's wearing the receiver. Person two, in this case, is wearing a receiver. The receiver device can use digital signal processing to re-encode digitized information from person one after it's been extracted from person one's body and brain. It's sent over the internet, and then it is inserted as a neural message, right? It's injected. The neural message is injected into person two's peripheral nervous system. For example, methods of magnetically stimulating, which is known here as transcranial magnetic stimulation of the visual areas in the occipital cortex of the brain, indirectly modulating, that is a stimulatory, that is an offensive technique, indirectly modulating neural activity through rapidly changing magnetic fields. The other example they give is electrically, whereby an array of sensors on or under the skin, hashtag graphene, for entertainment purposes only, or by haptically stimulating the nerves that induce neural activity. Now, haptic, we've heard that term before. When you set your phone to silent and it rings, and you feel that buzz, that is a haptic sensation. It is interacting with the pressure sensors in your skin. Your skin has a variety of sensors that do things like prevent you from leaving your hand on a hot stove, or train you over time not to cut yourself, or let you know how hard you're pressing or pulling or whatever. These sensors, in this particular case that we're talking about with respect to haptic feedback, deal with pressure. Now, when you think about the variety of ways that something like the nerves and the sensors in your skin are able to interact with your brain, they understand pressure, they understand temperature, they understand electricity, they understand magnetism, they understand light. It goes on and on and on. So what I'm reading to you here verbatim out of a patent is simply an example of what is possible. This does not include ultrasound, which potentially can be emitted from something like a smartwatch or a device that can then be used to modulate your brain. Even though you can't hear it, your brain will pick up on the binaural beats. So, and if you think, well, it's only a watch and it only has one speaker, or it's only coming from one location, when you understand how sound and other forms of energy reflect, refract, or absorb off of different objects like your walls, your carpets, your hardwood floors, your coffee table, it's very easy to point and direct sound or electromagnetics and have them reflect in such a way that when it comes back towards the body, it potentially is coming from a different direction. And when you consider the sophistication of AI and software, it is not too far to conceive for a moment that something like a set of ultrasonic speakers from something like a watch or a phone could potentially be able to direct sound off a wall, and then knowing the amount of time, because sound travels at the speed of sound, to calculate the amount of time that particular longitudinal perturbation ultimately comes back into your ears or your body. You send another directed ultrasonic pulse somewhere else. And with the timing, you're able to offset and, let's say, for example, establish a 4 hertz or a 7 hertz or a 10 hertz resonance in the brain or the body. And you don't even hear it or see it happening. I will continue with this patent. These are simply examples of what's possible with the stuff you buy your children for school, Christmas, and birthdays.
And so those patterns can be entrained all the way down to that lower frequency, very resting, relaxed state, all the way up to a 10 hertz, 20 hertz, and more active and activated state.
Yeah. So what this says is that these types of stimulation that are injected into someone's peripheral nervous system, the brain can interpret signals. For example, they use the word hello, right? So I can say hello and have the brainwave signature be measured by my wearable device, and it then goes over the internet, and someone else who I'm trying to talk to receives that communication through their mobile device, their wearable device, which is then translated back into biologic neural code so that their brain understands the sensation of an auditory effect of hello. It says here that these methods can be used in combination as neurostimulation methods to exchange information between brains directly in neural code. When we look at this idea of using directed energy in combination, what we get is the ability to transmit a variety of directed energy, light, sound, electromagnetics, into a biologic well below what is considered the legal limits for safety. And if you don't believe me, you can look up things like combinatorial effects of electromagnetics and sound, or light and sound, in order to induce an action potential. And what it will tell you there, and if you search something similar to that, is this idea of using both together, so that you use, let's say, light or ultrasound to get an action potential in the nervous system or the brain, just to the point of being able to fire. They call it sub-threshold. And when you get a neural network or a piece of the nervous system at a sub-threshold state, you can then apply a different type of energy to take it over that threshold and actually get something to fire. When you do that, you are able to establish a zero, if you will, of particular neural populations in the nervous system or the brain that then are set at a sub-threshold level to be rapidly fired over and over and over again with very, very, very minute amounts of additional energy. It's like priming or choking a piece of lawn equipment. So we went over this watch. And I'm going to show you if the computer will respond. It doesn't look like it is. It's fine. So we looked at the electrodes and the antennas, right, in this watch. And I'm going to show you Apple. Here's Apple. These are electrodes on an Apple Watch. And we haven't gone over what light can do. I think we should at some point. We can show examples of where they've done experiments with infrared light where they directly stimulate a peripheral nerve of something like a hamster or a guinea pig. And when they pulse, I think it was, I don't remember, it was very, very low amount, 0.4 or 0.5. And I forget the nomenclature on it. I'll have to look it up. Basically, it's this simple. If infrared light, or green light for that matter, if infrared light is scaled to the right power, which is really not that much, you can directly induce a action potential or a series of action potentials simply by pulsing infrared light onto a peripheral nerve. And if you were to look at peripheral nerves in the body, what you'll find is that they are very close to the skin, particularly in your face. Now, when you stare at YouTube or when you stare at your phone or whatever, ask yourself, what components in this device that I'm looking at are or is shining light at me? And what you will find is that the screen itself will shine light at you, and the invisible infrared sensors that now exist in just about every phone.
Exactly. You don't see the infrared.
Right. Unless you have another phone or something that can measure infrared. And I've done this. I had an old phone, got a new phone, and I filmed my new phone. And while I wasn't even trying to log into the phone was off, or the screen was dark, and I did it with the screen. I only did it with the screen dark. So I was not actively using my phone, but my phone was facing me, and I had the camera of my old phone on top of it. And what I saw was a pulsing of light. And what it is this. A phone typically cannot measure infrared light as we understand it. It does measure the light, but it's not something that's made available to us. There's software to go ahead and unlock or to add that functionality to your phone. So you can look that up. If you don't, what you will see in certain circumstances, if you try this little experiment, is a pulsing of red light that the camera picks up in the visible spectrum. Infrared is not necessarily in the visible spectrum as we understand it, what you can see with the naked eye. And what I'm getting at is this. These mobile devices are able to change the frequencies that they emit. There is a range of infrared light up to and including red light, just above the threshold of infrared light that the phone will emit. And the reason they do that is because infrared light passes through the body very effectively within a certain range of wavelengths, within a certain range of nanometers. And if you are able to select the right frequency of infrared light, what you're able to do is manage the power output and get the depth and the timing that you need to start scanning and potentially stimulating a variety of different tissue types in a biological. That's really where we are at with current technology. What I want to show.
Just a quick thing. I'm throwing a link in the chat. If anybody really wanted to play around with this, there are paints that are designed to absorb infrared light and reflect in a color spectrum that we can see. So they transform the invisible light into visible. And I just put the link in there for you. In fact, I'm going to continue looking at that to see if I can source something like this. It's really just a paint with a particular chemical composition. Very simple stuff. So you could get some of this, small bottle of it, maybe for $5 or $10, paint it on a piece of paper and hold it in front of your television remote control, in front of your smartphone, in front of your smartwatch, and see what's actually coming out. And I've done this with it long ago. I had something that was active that way, and I don't know what I did with it. I lost it, but it's not really hard to get this stuff. So I'm going to keep looking and see if I can find a little.
So here we go. This is another
paint that you can buy.
This is another picture of an Apple Watch. This is a Hermes, and what I want to show you here is, it says GPS on it. This is connected directly to the cell network, long-term evolution right here, water resistant to 50 meters, right? And so I want to show you what they talk about in these patents here. These are different configurations of the light emitting diodes. We have green light and red light, or infrared for that matter, and they do different things. You can understand a great deal about your biometrics if you use multiple wavelengths of light. And what I mean by that is this. If we were to look at camera technologies, which we can do in a moment perhaps, what they talk about is being able to use the RGB, the red, green, and blue, the independent channels of red, green, and blue, to be able to understand your biometrics, things like your heartbeat, things like your stress levels. This is how this is done with a smartwatch. So when you sleep, when you wake up, you know how rested you are, and you know how stressed out you were, and all these other things, so that mommy and daddy from the government can make sure that your ass is wiped. This is what this watch can do. And this is just what they disclose in the patents. They are breaking down what the components are within the various layers of your dermis, your skin. It can image and map all of these things. In this particular patent, wearable electronic device having a light field camera, able to perform bioauthentication from the dorsal side of a forearm near the wrist. This is an Apple patent. They talk about mapping the various layers of tissue where the watch sits, so that when you put the watch on, it authenticates based on things like the skin pores or the hair follicles or the sweat ducts or anything else that's unique, such as the amount of tendon tissue you have and where it's located, or where your nerves are, where your veins are, where your arteries are. These are all very unique and specific to an individual, and it is a biometric, bioauthentication. This talks about mapping the veins, and what you see here are the veins and tendons. If they can do this, they can map your nerves. Keep in mind, this is just talking about a light field camera. Radar, ultra wideband radar, is able to do the same thing. You can look up Google Soli patents, again on Human Internet, and or you can look up the stuff that Lawrence Livermore Laboratories has patented. They are the ones that were chosen, in my view, to have these technologies originally patented back in the 80s and the 90s for military applications. These things are now so antiquated that companies like Apple and Google and Fitbit and others are able to deliver the same technologies that used to be used for high-level military applications to you and your family for your convenience. And this is the kind of stuff that medicine of the future is going to be using, collecting, and stimulating. Let's go. We already looked at headphones last week, so we're gonna look at cameras real quick because I told you about the RGB. Cameras, your phone and your computer can estimate your brain activity, the blood circulation amount calculating unit, right? So they're measuring blood flow and blood oxygenation so they can estimate how active your brain is and where the activity is, right? Looking at the facial surface of the human based on the red, green, and blue data of a photographed image. This can be done with video as well. What it talks about here is they decompose the photographed image in 3 color components composed of R, G, and B. The estimation unit is configured to estimate brain activity of the human based on a plurality, which means many different deconstructed pictures or deconstructed components of a picture. Looking at blood circulation. And there's many, many, many more of these on this page. Determining emotions using a camera. This stuff is so Fourth Amendment violating, and everybody, I'll restate this. Most people at this point are awake to this idea of big tech censoring and big tech regulating speech. We're finally getting to that point where enough people have been banned or shadow banned or whatever that this is really becoming an issue, to the point that President Trump is formed a class action lawsuit that I think will take a long time to actually manifest into something tangible. All that said, this patent was released in 2018 by Samsung. And it's able to read your brain and it's able to read your emotions with a camera. Now, if this isn't a violation of your Fourth Amendment, I can't help you. I don't know. I don't. If you're in America,
what else can you say?
Yeah. If you're in America, I don't know what else to tell you other than your family's being psychologically raped. And what I mean by that is this: when you can use something like a camera to measure your brain waves or to measure your emotional state, when you are watching videos, when you are shopping, when you're communicating with loved ones, every single element that can be extracted is being extracted. I'll continue with another example. Similar patents: determining cardiovascular features using a camera, determining the artery location using a camera, remote monitoring of vital signs using a camera. This was back in 2011, 2012 from Oxford. And we will continue single channel imaging. That's only using red or blue or green. Dynamic changes in your heart or respiration. This was back in 2012. And we will continue because there's one more in here I think I want to show you. This is it right here. Modifying a digital video signal to mask biological information.
Why would you do that?
Well, you would do that to do something like when the president's giving a speech, you don't have other countries understanding how the individual is really feeling when they're up there knowingly lying.
Sure.
For example.
Yep.
Right. And so what this patent talks about is being able to override the biological information with artificial biological information. So when you think about a covert application of this, an operator or a spy would be able to potentially have software loaded on their phone or in their bodies that would mask or cloak their normal biometric signature. signatures. And that would be very useful for those types of individuals, because when they come back home and they're with their families and on their own time, they don't have to worry about that kind of tech being used from the enemy's, right, infiltration of our country to then hunt and seek those that are hunting and seeking our enemies. So this technology is very, very useful. What it says in this patent in particular, which is what really caught my eye, was rather than providing a false set of biometrics to mask the real biometrics when using a camera to measure your vitals and your brain waves and your emotions and your respiration and your heartbeat, what it can do is send stock information or send commodity information. Now, when the people sit down in London and the rest of the world every day and determine the price of silver and gold, which is done, don't you think that this kind of information would be useful, where they can literally sit down and have a conversation about their children, and they are sending financial information while having a video chat? This is called insider trading, folks. This is how modern economics in a globalized environment works without appropriate oversight and accountability. It is criminal to do this. One more thing I want to show you. If you go to the electromagnetic section on human internet and you go into the upper right corner, you will find EMF and DE, electromagnetic frequencies or fields, and directed energy. When you go to Google radar and gesture sensing, what you will find is temperature. So what I'm going to do is go back up here to this patent. It's a radar-based biometric recognition. Back in 2014, Google. This right here with the strike through in the US means that this was abandoned. It doesn't mean that the patent is no good. What it means is that they've taken this technology and they have infused it into some of their other patents, which in fact are on humaninternet.org. Back to the temperature. Check this out. A field, a radar field provided by a microwave radio element, microwave. Microwaves exist today for radio communications. Millimeter waves are what's being advertised for the top tier 5G experience. 5G is a compilation of all of the existing radio technologies plus the implementation of millimeter wave and nanometer wave communication. What this is saying here is that a microwave signal, which is in the gigahertz range, low gigahertz, a microwave signal can be a three-dimensional volume and shape. So the field that they're making isn't just a flat pancake. They can make a square, they can make a circle, they can make a cube, they can make a sphere, they can make a trapezoid. They could do all of these things. And what they're using for an example here is a hemisphere that has volume that looks like a fan, a cube, or a cylinder. So we have microwave radiation that can be projected in a three-dimensional shape onto a surface that is applied to the human tissue. So the surface in this case is the human tissue. In the case of a 3D volume, antenna elements are configured to receive the reflections off of the human tissue in the 3D volume field that has been generated. For example, the reflections off of your skin, your bone, or your heart. Signal processors is configured to process these reflections, right, to provide biometric data usable to determine biometric conditions. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you healthy? Are you excited? Are you sleeping? Whatever. In 3 dimensions, such as, and here's this temperature that I was quoting earlier, temperature of a person's arm at multiple locations, multiple points in the arm and around the arm. Through the surface field radar of your Google Pixel phone, Google Soli, these techniques may determine the skin temperature, heart rate, or the amount of perspiration on, for example, your hand, looking at the water or salt in the skin. They can be configured, these microwave elements can be configured to emit microwave radiation at 57 to 63 gigahertz range. Now, this range right here is This is your Y gig. This is the new Wi-Fi that's standard in all of your routers. You don't have a choice anymore. All of your new phones have a 60 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and the 60 gigahertz Wi-Fi is allowable in something like a mobile device. It's also allowable in a commercial telecommunications network. Facebook, look this up. Facebook is looking at using 60 gigahertz for their own private networks in a commercial environment. What this means is that anything that is able to transmit in the 60 gigahertz Y gig range, doesn't matter if it's in your house or not, is able to remotely monitor your temperature and other components of your biometrics. And this is a major Fourth Amendment problem. In addition to the 57 and 63 gigahertz, the Google Pixel phone, the Google Soli chipset, which is made by Infineon, who also has lots of products and services in many other devices, can in fact broadly expand the amount of frequencies it transmits between 1 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz. The ability to receive reflections from the human tissue at a particular resolution, for example, between 2 and 25 millimeters. Now, you tell me if Google and Apple and the government is measuring everything about your physicality, if they can measure with radar available in every phone that you buy today, down to 2 millimeters. Imagine studying your spouse's body every 2 millimeters. What would you learn about the sensitivity, the sensuality, the exquisiteness of your spouse if you spent the time studying 2 millimeters at a time over the entire surface of their beautiful body? What would you learn? You would learn a lot. And I'm sure your spouse would be very, very happy with you. The point of that is this: only you should be doing that to your spouse, not Tim Apple, and not Eric Schmidt, and not Mark Zuckerberg, and not Bill Gates, and not Jeff Bezos. None of these people, up to and including the federal government or your respective governments elsewhere, should be doing this type of analysis without your consent. It is completely illegal. It is a violation of your privacy, and it's degrading. It literally, we'll just leave it at that. So it's saying here that they can select particular frequencies to be able to penetrate your clothing while not necessarily penetrating your tissue, right? Can be configured to differentiate between different human tissue reflections, right? Human tissue reflections and or reflections caused by clothing. Differentiate between different types of human tissue. Different types include skin, muscle, particular types of muscle, meaning the difference between your heart and skeletal muscles, fast twitch and slow twitch, those are different. Your bone, your blood, and your cartilage. Biometric conditions, this is important, can also include blood pressure, skin temperature, breathing rate, oxygen or carbon dioxide content of your breath. Now, when you're sitting there huffing and puffing about a beautiful hot blonde that you're looking at on your phone, the lasers and the radar, in this case, particularly the radar, could potentially be able to measure the carbon dioxide and the oxygen content of your breath. And it says here, just to name a few of the different biometric components that are able to be measured. These and other conditions can be determined based on measuring a user's heart movement. They're measuring your heart moving in your body. The quantity of the blood in your capillaries or your veins, whether or not capillaries are full or not full. Capillaries, not veins, not arteries, capillaries. Mm-hmm. Skin perspiration, bones or cartilage orientations. Movements of your ribs, meaning breathing, chemical content or temperature of the air expelled from the user, temperature of the skin or the interior temperature of muscle or blood, and so forth. And there's much, much more about Google's radar. This one, the enabled sensor fusion, really talks about how the radar is used as a primary component to extract more data from your body and or your environment. And it does that by using all of the other sensors and other components in your device to collect confirming, corroborating information.
Corroborated.
Right. From what the radar is picking up. Now, what this does is allow for something like quarantining in your home to enable something like Google and Apple to map your entire body and your entire family so that when you're allowed to go back out, all of the corroborations that were made with the cameras and the microphones and the radar and the power lines and the sound and everything else, you'll have a nice, beautiful data set right there so that you can use a commercial network outside of the home to measure the same types of radar signatures and have a higher probability of accuracy because you've spent so much time quarantined that the camera, the microphone, the other sensors, et cetera, light, et cetera, have built a very detailed data set that allows for the radar done in the commercial environment to reference your biometric profile with a company like Amazon, who works with the CIA, the DHS, Border Patrol, and the military. They're not exclusive. Microsoft has these programs, Apple, Google, all of them. They all have these programs so that when you go out in public, very, very small amounts of network usage, overhead, if you will, for the network, very, very small amounts of it are able to be used to confirm with a higher level of accuracy who you are, what you're doing, and how you feel and think about it without having a device on you. This is the Internet of Bodies, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, basically manifest into an environment that you cannot escape from. This is a major problem. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I've been looking for infrared excited paint, and I've been putting links out there for everybody so you could make yourself a little tool to see what's shooting out infrared that you can't see with your eyes.
Cool. If you can take this Google Doc link and share that as well. This is for public consumption. There are topics on here that we have discussed in the past, and there are some that we have not yet discussed, like Janus particles, biopolymers, and viral delivery. This has been we've been waiting to talk about this for a while, but nonetheless, we'll get this far. If you want to look ahead, you can do so. And there's some other things
putting that out there. Okay, I'm working on that.
Very good. There are some other components in here, and this is going to be a work in progress. We're going to add to this as time goes on. What we didn't necessarily get to today is going over the finer nuances of DARPA decoding the nervous system, and perhaps maybe we'll start there
next time.
Yeah, and I don't exactly remember what the link was that showed this. I think it was this one. We'll highlight this, and we did a number of weeks ago. And where we're going to go with this, folks, is breaking down just how far that they're disclosing to the general public. We're going to break down how far they've broken down the human as a whole, the nervous system, right? And these are the different major programs that they've been working on, and it deals with mapping the brain. It deals with tapping into the nervous system. It deals with brain-computer interfaces. And a lot of very interesting information is in here, which we'll go over as time permits. We have about 9 minutes left or so.
We got a few minutes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I don't really know where you want to go, other than I think if you're interested in this information, look at this spreadsheet and just start exploring so that you can do your own research or have some preparatory ideas or themes in your mind as we continue to go through this stuff. we've already been through the paramagnetic iron oxide nanoparticles and how they're able to independently control the nanoparticles based on the direction of the magnetic field and the amplitude of it and the pulsing of it, etc. We should go over it again, quite frankly, but humaninternet.org, this Cyberhuman Frontiers spreadsheet, if you can share the Telegram channels for Human Internet and for Cyberhuman Frontiers, I think it's important that we plug, so to speak, the Rumble account that we have and the Telegram accounts that we have, so that our guests are able to have an additional way to follow along. I put out quite a bit of information on Telegram. For example, let me load Telegram real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And you'll see, if you're not subscribed to Telegram, you should be, simply because redundancy in the social media environment is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do is I'll show you what I post on the Human Internet t.me. If you go t.me Human Internet, you'll find what I'm going to show you here. I'm going to take share real fast again, and there it is. So if you go to t.me Human Internet, and if you go to Human Internet on Twitter, Human Internet 1 on Twitter, excuse me, you'll find the links there as well. But this is the kind of stuff that I'm posting here on Telegram. You know, our brains create our minds specifically to preserve our bodies and pilot them through our environment. All of this stuff really correlates with this notion of genetic engineering and genetic insertion of conductive proteins, magnetically responsive proteins, light responsive proteins, that kind of stuff, in addition to AI, neural networks, and general information about deconstruction and reconstruction of the brain. For example, you have here the Wyss Institute Brain Targeting Program. And you have here rare footage of a 1950s housewife in an LSD experiment. That's kind of interesting. Nano engineering strategies for antibody nanoparticle conjugates. This is a very interesting read. When you look at cancer research, when you look at Alzheimer's and epilepsy type research, when you look at the nanotechnology space and the genetic therapy space for these types of chronic illnesses, you will find all kinds of interesting information that may or may not correlate for your entertainment purposes only to what it is that we are all undergoing with this fourth industrial revolution. The Brain and the Nervous System podcast, very interesting. Neurocyber Instruments. James Jorion, this is us, buddy. This was one of our shows.
Yeah.
There's some other stuff in here. Scientists show how blocking opioid receptors can restore breathing during an overdose. Now, this would be very interesting information if you're able to target opioid receptors, right? And you're able to restore breathing. What if you could remotely modulate something like an opioid receptor? Hashtag fentanyl. And nonlinear optics. This is related to this idea or notion of light and being able to use light to do things like create holograms in the body or to generate a hologram of your brain or other parts of your body, that kind of stuff. This doesn't specifically talk about that, but when you read these things, these are the types of documents that give you an idea of what the fundamentals are so that you can then cross-apply the logic over to our, for your entertainment purposes only, conceptual space of what it is that transhumanism is going to look like for your entertainment purposes only. Graphene sensors read low-frequency neural waves associated with distinct brain states from Awkward Mama on Twitter. And Apple scanning every single iPhone for images of child sexual abuse. Oh, well, that's just a good reason to have Apple access your device. But wait a minute, didn't Tim Cook say he doesn't do that? I don't know. It sounds like that guy's just a flaming liar. That's what I meant to say. What else is in here? Finger pad charges your phone or watch with your sweat. Why is this relevant? If you look at these types of technologies and you consider what can be done with them in your body, what we're looking at is or are conversions of forces where you can take thermodynamics or hydrodynamics or a change in the pH or a change in some other type of activity. We can even go so far as to say cellular activity like enzymatic excretions or whatever to do things like generate energy for nano computation in your body. And this is where you have to look at the Department of Energy, EARPA, which is the Department of Energy's version of DARPA. And you look at IARPA, which is the intelligence agency's version of DARPA. And you look at DARPA. And from those three, you can begin to extrapolate how nanotechnology in particular is able to do everything that's needed to create nanoscopic computers, nanoscopic circuits in something like a biological. And we're here, and this is the world in which we live. Look, Department of Energy, Office of Science from Twitter, magnets, not just solid anymore. Researchers learn how to control magnetic droplets of liquid, which could be used for lenses or mirrors. Magnetic droplets of liquid. Now, what, in fact, do we have in our environment today that we understand as being liquid metal and maybe magnetic? I don't know. I really don't know. Applications and benefits of emotion sensing technology. This is T.me, human internet.
Total invasion, TMC, total invasion.
Yeah.
I just had thoughts in the background of just sharing with everybody before we run out of time, which is if you're an imaginative person, you may think of anything and everything. There's a big difference between what we may think of and what we do. When we do, we take action. When we think of things, you can think of everything possible that could be done by you or anybody else. And when someone gets into your thoughts, then they're looking at what you're thinking. And the temptation would be, it opens the gateway for things like preemptive arrest, that type of thing. And really, there's nothing saying that any and everything that you might have thought that you or somebody else might do is ever going to happen. So opening the doorway to being able to read people's thoughts, I think, is going down an extremely slippery slope. And it opens once again, opens another door for a whole lot of abuse of that knowledge. That's just background thoughts that I've just been having as we've been talking.
Graphene being able to be used as a superconductor. We didn't really get into the quantum space too much, but there's so much information to go over that we're going through this in pieces, and we go back and review because it's important to go back and review, because when we add more pieces, it's important to understand very, very specifically how they interrelate as we see it, so that you get a sample, if you will, of a perspective, so that you then can take that sample and form your own opinions and your own thoughts and your own conclusions. Graphene is a superconductor, and a superconductor at room temperature that's inserted into a biological potentially enables something like a quantum connected brain that will then be connected to a quantum internet. And when you look at free space quantum transmitters from a company like Verizon back in the early 2000s, it's not too hard to see that the wireless technology that's currently deployed and the better wireless technology that is being deployed actively now and up into the future, in fact, possesses the necessary hardware and the software to allow for a parallel internet that is being constructed with 5G. That's just my opinion. The parallel internet is a quantum internet that will then tie in the higher level quantum internets that have been around since the early 2000s. If you don't believe me, you can look up DARPA back in approximately 2001 and 2002, sending out requests for quantum information science and quantum material science back in the early 2000s. They are rolling out quantum now only as a public PR case, if you will. And the reason why is because in my view, the quantum internet is ready and is probably already deployed, and the 5G build is simply to improve density, network density. One more thing. Using graphene to understand a heartbeat. Researchers at UC Berkeley, which are affiliated with the Department of Energy, used graphene to record electric fields created by heart cells. This technology is used in sensors to study cells that create electrical voltage. If you are not subscribed to T.me Human Internet, I strongly encourage you to do so, because everything I find that is relevant to the last 3 or 4 years of study is going on multiple platforms, Twitter, and at this point, Telegram and humaninternet.org. So
there you go.
That.
I think we got enough for one episode here, pal.
I love you, brother.
Got a whole lot there. All right, guys, please join us again. Thanks. Really active comments and chat. Thanks so much for being with us, and tell your friends. Do a little reading on your own if you'd like, and we'll see you next time. Have a great week. See you soon.